Hi, welcome to Fast Intelligent Care, the podcast by Enable Lifecare, where we dive into smarter care solutions, cutting-edge products, and practical insights for healthcare professionals across Australia and New Zealand. In today's episode, we're going to talk about seating and positioning. So, first thing I want to ask you, Kate, is if you have any case studies or story that really stands out where you've had a seating prescription that went really well, or even didn't go that well, but you've learned something out of that.
Of course. Look, I think with any seating and positioning, I think one of the first learning steps is that it's never over until it's over. It's constantly changing and you're adapting it. So even though something works initially, you need to be continuing a review process. But yeah, look, I've certainly had people come when I first met them and they're really in a non-functional posture, like a really strong lateral lean, coming forward like in a kyphosis, drooling, those sorts of things. And with the correct type of wheelchair seating and controlling the pelvis and providing some lateral supports, I've been able to get them sitting upright and, no longer drooling and all those sorts of things. So it is really, I think one of the greatest joys in my profession is seeing someone sit comfortably because the look on their face when they first get in that comfortable position is pretty special. So yeah, lots of those sort of cases. There's probably one I can go into specifically, but yeah.
Do you have any tips for assessing someone's posture and seating, especially within the home where, we don't have a plan for there, we don't necessarily have a nice stable surface that has that all-round view for measuring or doing your mat evaluation? Do you have any tips for those types of scenarios?
I'll make friends with the physio. Look, I do just do in community settings. Look, I've just about tried everything, like putting like slide boards under people to get a stable surface to look at pelvis in a lying position. At the end of the day, I really don't think it. You just got to do the best what you can do, what you've got. If someone is quite complex, I will often get in touch with their physio and say, hey, look, I'm looking at seating. Can you help me with a mat assessment here? And we often do a joint appointment at the physio. I've done a couple of those just because I felt that it was necessary to get the right seating for that person and just get those measurements, which physically sometimes can't do when you're in a community setting. Might just be you, getting someone to sit on the edge of a bed that isn't a stable plinth as well can be challenging when they're a full sling transfer. You might have a support worker, but they're hit and miss as to how they're able to assist you. So that's sort of my trick is I make friends with the physio.
Yeah, that's handy because they can also help. They have more of an understanding, I guess, of what is the posture that you may be wanting to achieve, so they can try and help get the person into that.
Yeah, and it gives you a bit more of a collaborative approach. And I find the more that I come from 20 years ago, the multidisciplinary team was a huge thing in the hospital. You were always consulting and bouncing ideas off each other. Whereas now I think in community it can be very isolated in terms of you're the OT and the physio and they've got a speech pathologist, but you might never even have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And they mightn't actually realise what you're trying to achieve, and sometimes that can be contraindicative to what they're trying to achieve. So it's about having that discussion and involving and getting that multidisciplinary team thing happening again so that everyone can be on the same page. And I think it gives the client a lot more confidence in what you're trying to do as well if everyone on the team is thinking along the same lines. So
yeah. No, that's a very very good advice actually, that you do get those scenarios where everyone's going out on their own and they're doing their own assessment and you're probably just reading notes potentially, and something like with seating positioning, the physio does have a lot of like a different almost viewpoint that we don't necessarily always consider. So that's really good advice. Is there anything with riser recliner chairs that you've experienced in terms of things that work really well? Maybe challenges that you've experienced as well? One that I've come across a lot is usually aesthetics, but I don't with routine.
I often declare at the start of any recliner chair trial, I'm not an interior designer, so I don't advise on color choice.
A little
Yeah, look, I love adjustment in a recliner chair. So I do a lot of. Am I allowed to mention like specific brands?
Yeah, you're welcome.
The configurer a lot for that reason. Because it's adjustable on site. It's something I can adjust, and I can do that. I can show how a shorter seat depth can improve comfort quite in a short period of time, as opposed to moving from one chair to another, sometimes in a separate shop, because not everyone carries the infinite sizing of chairs. So yeah, I find having adjustability in a chair is huge game changer, and what we thought the configure is brought, and then the ability to adapt it as someone's needs change. So selling someone pressure care when they're going to need it in 5 years' time, but they're not ready for it and they don't want to pay for it right now, then they can put that RoHo in at a later date if they want. They don't need to purchase it now. So that's been the biggest one. So just something that's adaptable and it can be adjusted on site, because people's shapes change, people's transfer styles change. They might be doing a sit to stand transfer in 2 years' time. They need a standing aid that needs to then get under the lifter, where a vertical lift is really important. So it's my share of choice.
That's good to hear. No, I love the configure for that as well. Something that I've also wanted to ask, because you briefly mentioned pressure care, is if there's any tips that you would give a new grad when they're looking at pressure care options, because there's so many and it's difficult. I get a lot of OTs that will ask me what's the best pressure care cushion, and I usually say it's a very tricky question, because it's going to depend on the person. Do you have your tip on how to pressure?
The best pressure care cushion is the one that addresses the pressure issue. Look, my biggest tip is don't go for a blanket approach. Don't just go, okay, this is, here, have a RoHo because this is the best for pressure care. It's more of a, okay, what is causing those? I think the cause of a pressure injury is really important. So a lot of times people say, oh, I'm getting a pressure injury on my bottom, for instance. And you go out there and you have a look at it and they think just putting a pressure cushion on top of the recliner chair is going to be the solution to the problem. But the fact of the matter is that the chair depth's too deep, and that's causing them to slide into a posterior pelvic tilt, loading up their sacrum, and very little fatty tissue around that sacrum, and you get a pressure injury on the sacrum. So actually improving the sitting posture will offload that sacral pressure injury. And that might be done through a different mean other than just sticking a cushion, which is often raises the height of the chair and then causes other postural issues anyway. So I think looking at the cause of what the pressure injury is the key to solving that problem. Likewise, same with bed ones as well. You see that all the time with you using too much head elevation and not and causing those shearing forces on the sacrum. So look at the cause, then solve the problem.
I was talking about when you're looking at size, pressure, posture, it's like a Venn diagram where they all intersect. Because if you have, like you said, the wrong seat depth, you're going to go into posterior pelvic tilt, so you're going in poor posture, and then your pressure is thrown off as well, or you're getting shear as well.
Yeah.
So it is pretty good that you mentioned that it is not just the pressure care cushion. It's not the be all and end all of preventing pressures or even treating pressure injuries. Have you seen? Well, I'm guessing you would have, but coming across clients that put layers of like sheepskin, towels, continence pads on top of their recliner chairs. How do you navigate that?
Look, I try and navigate that as diplomatically as possible, because otherwise I have this image of me and the client like holding on to one end of the sheepskin and tugging it, trying to take it away, because they get very attached to certain aspects. I think they give them comfort, I suppose.
Yeah.
And realistically, okay, if I go in there and I see someone with this beautiful pressure care chair, with an alternating seat cushion in it and then a lambskin over the top, it's okay, I can see what's going on here, but I'm just wondering why you have that lambskin on your chair. What purpose is that serving you? And sometimes they say, oh, because the fabric's really cold, or I just put it there because I thought she needed something extra to, because she had a sore bottom that would give her a bit more padding. And then it's just around about educating people around that. So having a piece of 4-way stretch material that a pressure care chair is built out of versus a rigid like lambskin, you can show them how you're able to immerse into that more elastic material versus that rigid material, and just sort of giving them some basic, not forcing it down their throat, but just some gentle education around why it is that you recommend not having those things on there. And, the big one is continence pads. If you're having continence issues, can we look at a different way of managing that as well? And sometimes you got to work around the lambskin overlay, because no matter what you say to them, that'll continue to be on that chair for whatever reason. And sometimes it's just a matter of, like I said, if you can correct the posture that might be causing some of that discomfort, it can go a long way to relieving pressure injuries anyway. So, yeah, if someone's sitting properly on their bottom, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Kate. We'll go on to our episode 3 on transfer aids, manual handling, and slings. Yep. That's it for this episode of Fast Intelligent Care. If you're tired of spending hours on clinical reports, you're not alone, and we hear it all the time. And that's why we created the Enable Lifecare app that make your AT assessments, product selection, and report writing so much quicker, easier, and more accurate. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter for updates for our upcoming free CPD events, such as our webinars, product updates, resources, and more ways to enable smarter care. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Fast Intelligent Care.